the fall of the Bastille, and the birth of Revolution 1789 on the 14th of July 1789. The storming of the Bastille marked a moment that would forever alter the course of European history. To the people of France, the Bastille was not merely a prison, it was the towering symbol of royal oppression, a physical reminder of arbitrary justice, unchecked authority, and generations of suffering under absolute monarchy. For years, ordinary French citizens had endured crushing taxation, forced labor under the corvée system, and chronic food shortages that had now escalated into famine. While the common people struggled to survive, the royal court at Versailles lived in extravagant luxury, insulated from hardship and blind to desperation. This stark inequality ignited public fury. When revolutionaries tore down the Bastille, they shattered more than stone walls, they demolished the myth of royal invincibility. Soon after, representatives of the Third Estate gathered and swore the tennis court oath, pledging not to disband until France had a constitution. Inspired by Enlightenment ideals, these deputies demanded liberty, equality, and political representation. The revolutionary slogan, "The rights of man and of the citizen," echoed through Paris, signaling the collapse of the Ancien regime. Across Europe, monarchs watched nervously as France stepped into a new and uncertain era, an age defined by reason, popular sovereignty, and revolutionary upheaval. Hope surged through the streets as many believed a just and rational society was finally within reach, unaware that revolution would soon consume itself in violence, war, and ideological extremism. A fragile constitutional dream and royal betrayal in the early phase of the revolution. Optimism dominated political life. France was governed by a national assembly composed largely of educated, middle-class reformers, deeply influenced by Enlightenment philosophy. Their goal was ambitious, to transform France into a constitutional monarchy that balanced royal authority with popular representation. Most deputies believed this compromise would stabilize the nation while preserving order. However, the king, Louis XVI, had no intention of sharing power. Deeply uncomfortable with revolutionary reforms and encouraged by conservative nobles, he viewed the assembly with resentment and contempt. This tension exploded in June 1791, when Louis attempted to flee France and rally loyalist forces abroad. His arrest at Varennes was catastrophic. Brought back to Paris under armed guard, the king's failed escape shattered public trust and exposed his willingness to betray the revolution. The nation now stood divided. Moderates still clung to constitutional monarchy, while radicals demanded the abolition of the crown and the creation of a republic. Although a new constitution was finalized in September 1791, granting the king substantial authority within a new legislative assembly, the damage was done. Politifactions hardened. On the left sat the Jacobin, calling for sweeping reforms to law, taxation, and the church. On the right, the Feuillants argued the revolution had gone far enough. France drifted into paralysis, and increasingly, war appeared to many as the only solution capable of unifying the fractured nation and resolving the crisis of legitimacy. Europe reacts, and the road to war 1792, while France struggled internally. Europe's attention was initially focused elsewhere, particularly on the crumbling Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Surrounded by aggressive neighbors, Poland had already suffered territorial losses to Austria, Prussia, and Russia. When Catherine the Great sent troops into Poland in 1792, fears of renewed partition consumed European diplomacy. Nevertheless, France could not be ignored. Monarchs across Europe worried that revolutionary ideals might spread like a contagion, threatening their own rule. In 1791, Austria and Prussia issued the Declaration of Pillnitz, warning that harm to the French king would concern all crowned heads. Intended as a deterrent, the declaration instead enraged revolutionaries, who saw it as foreign interference and proof of counter-revolutionary conspiracy. Calls for war erupted from all sides. Radical Girondins believed war would unify France and export revolutionary ideals. Royalists secretly hoped defeat would restore absolute monarchy. Even the king and Marie Antoinette quietly welcomed the prospect of foreign invasion. On the 20th of April 1792, France declared war on Austria, plunging the revolution into an international conflict that would soon determine its survival. Military collapse and revolutionary terror, France entered the war, intoxicated by patriotic enthusiasm, expecting swift victory. Instead, disaster followed. The French army, once Europe's most formidable, had been crippled by mass desertion among aristocratic officers fleeing the revolution. Newly formed volunteer units brimmed with zeal, but lacked discipline, training, and supplies. Campaigns in the Austrian Netherlands quickly collapsed into chaos. Mistrust between soldiers and officers sparked panic, mutiny, and brutality, culminating in the murder of General Dillon by his own troops. As France faltered militarily, Prussia joined Austria in what became the First Coalition. Commanded by Duke of Brunswick, coalition forces advanced toward Paris. Brunswick's infamous manifesto threatened to destroy the city if harm came to the royal family. This provocation ignited popular rage. On the 10th of August, 1792, revolutionary crowds stormed the Tuileries Palace, massacring Swiss guards and imprisoning the king. As enemy armies advanced and paranoia spread, violence exploded within Paris. The September massacres saw revolutionary mobs slaughter prisoners, priests, and perceived traitors in a frenzy of fear and vengeance. France teetered on the brink of collapse, militarily weak, politically unstable, and consumed by internal terror. Vimy and the salvation of the revolution, facing annihilation, France rapidly reformed its army. Old royal veterans were reinstated, tactics simplified, and mobility prioritized. Command fell to revolutionary generals Charles Dumouriez and Francois Kellerman, tasked with halting Brunswick's advance. After a series of near disasters, the two forces met near the village of Vimy on the 20th of September 1792. Cloaked in fog, the battlefield witnessed an unprecedented moment. The revolutionary army stood its ground. Though outnumbered in artillery, French gunners trained under the Gribeauval system fought with discipline and resolve. As cannon fire thundered across the hills, French soldiers sang La Marseillaise, transforming fear into defiance. When Brunswick ordered an advance, Prussian troops were met with devastating fire and forced to halt. For the first time, the revolutionary army did not break. Vimy was not a decisive tactical victory, but it was a moral one of historic proportions. The revolution had survived its greatest test. A republic is born, and Europe transformed. The impact of Vimy was immediate and profound. The following day, emboldened by survival, France's new national convention abolished the monarchy and proclaimed a republic. The coalition invasion faltered as disease, desertion, and rain ravaged enemy forces. Brunswick ultimately ordered a retreat, and by October 1792, coalition troops withdrew across the Rhine. Though the war was far from over, the revolution had secured its right to exist. Over the next 2 decades, Europe would be engulfed in near-constant warfare, costing millions of lives and reshaping the political landscape of the continent. The French Revolution proved that ordinary citizens could overthrow ancient regimes, mobilize mass armies, and redefine sovereignty itself. The ideals born in Paris, liberty, equality, nationalism, would inspire movements across the globe, from Europe to the Americas. Vimy ensured that these ideas would not be extinguished in their infancy. Instead, they marched forward with cannon, song, and conviction, ushering in the modern age of political revolution.